And so what does innovation look like? Well, we're joined this morning by the leaders of District New Haven, StamfordNext, and Upward Hartford, and the executive director of Hartford-based Reset, Sarah Bodley. Innovation is so critical to growing Connecticut, and as I said with the governor, urban renewal is the foundation of growing Connecticut. It's critical that we have vibrant cities, innovative workforce, collaborating together to grow our economy, to reimagine what Connecticut looks like, and to rebuild stronger and better than we have before. As we're waiting for our panelists to come on, let me remind you to join CBIA.com and sign the policy pledge. It's critical that we have a loud voice at the state capitol. Legislators don't always want to hear from lobbyists and advocates. They want to hear from you, the business leaders, and the residents of Connecticut. What's important? It's critical that they hear from the voices of Connecticut as to why we need to grow our economy, nurture our business community, and create jobs. So as we wait for the legislative panel to join us, think about what's important to you and let us know at CBIA. Email us, write us, call us, and let us know how we can help you rebuild your businesses and grow the economy where you are and in the communities across the state of Connecticut. In addition, if you get a chance, make sure you reach out to us if you want to hear your voice heard, and we'll connect you with legislators and media so that your voice can be heard loud and clear. Now let me turn it to our innovation panel, which I believe Sarah Bodley will be navigating us through. Right, Sarah, great to see you. I hope you're having a great new year and business is off to a great start.
Thanks so much, Chris. Yeah, it's great to be here. Year, I think, on the right foot with this excellent panel and this morning's event. So thank you for having me, and for also the panel that just finished. The representatives shared some really incredible insights. Really a pleasure to be here. And I also want to thank CBIA for putting together such a great summit this year. I'm honored to be here. As Chris noted, I'm here representing Reset Social Enterprise Trust in Hartford, which has been a staple in the community since 2007, focused on advancing social enterprise and impact-driven companies through our Impact Accelerator and other activities, really trying to make space to spark innovations to address climate change and social and economic inequities. And obviously in the last year, we've seen a real incredible shift as we've all navigated COVID-19. This morning, Governor Lamont pointed out that businesses really want to give back and help their communities through this. So I personally see that as a huge form of innovation. And I'm excited to dive into this topic of innovation through a business lens with our esteemed panelists this morning. I'm joined here by three very entrepreneurial individuals who are doing really amazing work in the innovation entrepreneurship spaces. Wes Bemus, the executive director of StamfordNext. JoHannah Hamilton is the COO at District New Haven, and Shana Schlossberg is the founder and CEO of Upward Hartford. Thank you all so much for being here today. I know our audience has already been introduced to you throughout the morning with some short video clips. And so if you haven't had a chance to see those, audience, I'm sure you'll be able to revisit them later, but we're going to dive right in. And I'd like to kick things off by asking each of our panelists to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your why. At what point did you realize a need for your organization, and what gaps did you recognize in the community that you wanted to attempt to close? Wes, let's start with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. My name is Wesley Bemus. I'm the executive director of StamfordNext. StamfordNext is one of 4 cities here in Connecticut that has received an Innovation Places grant from the legislature. The idea behind the Innovation Places grant, and the reason for our being, is that after GE kind of left a few years ago, we all recognized that we needed to create our next GE here at home. And the concept is to create ecosystems and networks and support systems for innovators, entrepreneurs, and really new businesses in each of our cities. So I'm our representative in Stamford. We also have representatives in Hartford, New London, and New Haven. And I'm little. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Wesley. Shauna, let's go to you next.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. So my name is Shana Schlossberg, and a few years ago, I arrived in Hartford, actually 4 to be exact, and I saw a city that was in distress, but mostly I saw all the logos as I drove up. And I said to myself, we need to create a center downtown, intersection, if you will, where people can connect. The corporate community can bring entrepreneurs, can help entrepreneurs, and can work with them. And that's what we set off to build with Upward Hartford. We took 27,000 square feet, then an additional to up to 34,000, and we just created an incredible intersection that many of you have probably visited and know about, with hundreds of events in the last few years, and more than, I would say, 30 corporate partners and over 150 enterprise partners. Entrepreneurs that have visited our space have been already in the hundreds, and many have built their companies from our space. So that's us.
Wonderful. Thanks, Shana. And JoHannah.
Hi, I'm JoHannah. I'm the COO at District New Haven. And I came to District in 2017 after completing my MBA dissertation as business plan for District Cowork. We opened Cowork in April 2018, soon reached almost 100% capacity, started to grow and build out the space. And I started to really see the impact that the community and the ecosystem had in these 100,000 square feet, and saw that really come to life. I saw the kinds of connections that people were making here and growing their own companies, starting new companies with people that they met here. And I knew that we needed to curate more places like this. We built a building, but together we've blended the academic approach with me, with intuition and human design with our co-founder Dave, to create something that we don't really have a name for. District is not an accelerator or an incubator, but it is a connected community of people and businesses that are innovating every day.
That's great. Thanks, JoHannah. And we're going to hear a lot more about that later on today as well. I do want to start off a little bit talking about innovation. That's the topic of the day, but I think it's a shifting landscape that we're in right now. And we've seen a lot of amazing innovation in the last year, kind of as a result of COVID. I'd love to hear your perspectives on how we can make the most of that tidal wave of innovation during the pandemic so that it remains part of our culture as we recover. And if you have some examples of things that you've seen in the past year, we'd love to hear them as well. Why don't we start with Wes again?
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been interesting because I've been working with entrepreneurs in the community all the way through the pandemic, and really what they've seen it as is an opportunity to come up with new ideas and iterate and pivot their businesses for the new reality that we're living in. A few direct examples where I work with and we support an organization that provides mentorship and guidance and opportunities to startups founded by immigrants. And there was one of the participants in that program. His name is Chef Rene. He was a catering chef here in Stamford before the pandemic. Obviously, that business had to let him go. Instead of trying to figure out another catering business that he could work for, he said, "I'm going to start my own online coursework teaching cooking to people because I feel that I can do this well in an online setting." So this gentleman has started a business. He's receiving mentorship from a prominent venture capitalist here in Stamford. He's receiving resources and guidance from his community center that we're funding. And so it's been very interesting to see people take their ideas, say, we're in a new digital world, we're going to iterate, we're going to pivot, and we're going to execute on this. And people are innovators and entrepreneurs in Stamford are doing that. Another example, we have a startup here in Captain and in Daniels, who is, I believe, a mentor at the district there, JoHannah. And she had an event production software company that she successfully has pivoted into purely online virtual event hosting and management, and it's going very well for her. So they've seen the need, they've reacted to the times, and I'm excited by the fact that innovators are innovating.
Thanks. Shana, anything to add from your perspective?
Yes. So 2 years ago, I did a fund called Upward Labs, focused on real estate technology, energy, and specifically aging technology. And against all odds, we actually started our third cohort on September 1st, so mid-pandemic, but really focused on technologies for COVID. And we've had 10 entrepreneurs on the ground in Hartford through, since September. And what we've seen actually is quite remarkable. Upward's whole methodology is to bring great entrepreneurs from around the world that need to be in Connecticut and across the country and help them grow their businesses because they want to work with the incredible corporate community we have, either on health or on real estate or on energy. And one of the things we've seen is, not only have we learned to adapt by, Wes's examples of doing everything online and everything, because entrepreneurs can always do that, but we're seeing that also in the corporate community. For the first time, we're having commercializations happen within months when it took usually a year and a half. So people have become, in a way, a lot of fat has been trimmed. We know this from businesses, also in corporates. People have become, I found, more accurate in the last few months. So if you bring them what they need, or if they meet what they need, then real commercializations can happen, real success can take place. And we've seen that a lot with the companies. Are the companies that are coming because they're COVID solutions, the ones that are in that space and have used the environment not to their advantage, but they're really offering a solution. It could be social isolation in the nursing homes, which is a huge problem right now. It could be quality and air quality and energy efficiency in buildings, which buildings all over the world now need for the first time. So these companies that are now being built from Connecticut are, have gone from zero to millions in revenue in some cases in months. So it's been a great time for very specific technologies around COVID solutions.
Yeah, I think that as we've seen over the past few months, it's really that innovation is saving people from the pandemic. Zoom existed before the pandemic, we knew that, but being able to stay connected and now having people see that innovation is important as it has always been present. One company here has operated nonstop through the pandemic because of Zoom and has been able to use 3D visualization of organs and body systems and evaluate medical needs for patients in India. So I think that the pandemic forced innovation as necessity that otherwise would have taken much longer for companies to move forward in some ways.
I appreciate that. And I'm curious because obviously as we come through this, hopefully those needs are going to shift. But do you have any thoughts on, you've all also created environments that allows innovation to thrive. Do you have any tips for our small business community and our entrepreneurial community on how to build that culture of innovation as we go forward and how to really, keep leveraging that?
I mean, I want to say, don't get me started. It was my dissertation. I think my advice would be to find spaces like District Co-work, like StamfordNext, like Upward Hartford, where you can be around other people, safely, socially distanced, all cleaning protocols adhered to, that will allow you to benefit from the thoughts of other people. One of the values that we have here at District is that we respect the journey and we believe in people. And that means that it's important that we're not the smartest person in the room. Like, we're not going to learn anything that way. And I think we've really seen the benefit of that here, even from companies just formed over the past few months, companies that have, finished out their rounds of seed funding during the pandemic. All of them have, been here day in, day out, just plugging along. I think the energy and the culture of being around other people who are, getting by just like you, can really have a magnifying effect.
I'd just like to, the other side of that coin is that being around people can be dangerous right now, and so how when you're starting a business which is naturally already potentially lonely, stressful, almost even scary, how do you get those kinds of collisions, those kinds of interactions? It's difficult, and really, as a startup founder, part of your goal is to network and meet as many people as possible because it's going to help you iterate. It's going to help you develop your concept. At the same time, we're all trying to keep people away from each other right now. And the best thing that I can say for an innovator is find your community, find your group of people, and just talk. And even if it's like this, we have weekly entrepreneur in residence Zoom calls that we run through the library downtown here. And we have a few mentors that come on, and we have 5 to 10 founders, and they all come on and they just talk to each other. And the whole point is more that they're in a community together without being together. And really, if you can't have a physical space, still get together with other people, because you're going to feel like you're not alone. You're going to feel like you have success, and other startup successes are going to help you think about and iterate and develop your own success.
Sarah, if I can jump in, actually, I want to answer from a different direction. You know, innovation ecosystems, JoHannah was saying, this pandemic taught us, bigger than Connecticut, bigger than the three of us, that innovation is the only way forward. I was talking about real estate technology. I was talking about nursing homes. Our food supply is in danger. Our energy supplies are in danger. I mean, we learned every bad lesson. COVID is an accelerant. That means it broke everything that wasn't really working. And so now we know that the future is, tomorrow doesn't look like yesterday. That means tomorrow is all about innovation. It's not how do we retain innovation. We have to throw everything else away, because we have to create a better place on every front. And we know this on a grand scale. And the challenge is like Wes and John are saying, is innovation ecosystems are in trouble because the old models have been threatened, right? Many of us have built models around co-working or different ways, or in Upward's case, we do a lot of corporate event rentals. So the old models on that front are broken. They can't operate in a 2020/half of 2021. But more than that, even accelerators around the world, more than 50% of the accelerators are now closed because corporate funding, I don't want to say dried up, but everything was shut down. Corporates go into freezes. Everything was stopped. And, you know, and if they had other sustainable models, those have been hurt. So we're in such a dilemma now that I want to look at from a Connecticut perspective, but even from an American perspective, that we know we have to not only keep the innovation we had, but double and triple and more, or we won't survive into the next 10 years. But on the other hand, what do we do in order to maintain an innovation ecosystem, strengthen them? Because they're the place where an innovator succeed. What we're saying is absolutely correct. Where we're seeing innovations, if you're in a bubble where you don't have spaces or you don't have places to connect or people to meet, your chance of success is much, much lower than others. And we all operate some form of training or accelerators. So, and that's, you know, we're on a call where this is meant for policy. That's something that should be a huge wake-up call to government and to our governor especially, to say, this is the time to take organizations like ours and say, what do we need in order to get into 2021 correctly? It's not how do we help another entrepreneurs? How do we change the game? We need better and bigger ideas. We can't take what was and just say, join a call online. It's not enough anymore. I think that everything has to be looked at in a new way.
Well, and digging into that, if I may, because I think, you know, we wanted to talk about the ecosystem and how it will look different in the future coming out of this. So we're also all in different cities here. We've got Hartford, Stamford, and New Haven represented. I'd love to hear your take on, you know, what are some of the specific conditions needed in your region, and perhaps, you know, thoughts on how they are similar or different from each other. And I would even add, is there a statewide approach? I think there is, but I'd love to hear your take on sort of how you think your local ecosystem, you know, fits into the bigger picture and how you work across those lines.
Yeah.
Wes, do you want to start us off? Thanks.
Yeah, in the case of Stamford, we're actually fairly competitively placed. Connecticut has done an excellent job of keeping us close to and connected with New York City. And what we found when the pandemic landed was that innovators, startups in New York City started looking at the failures that we just discussed of the traditional network models and saying, why are we spending all of this money to be here in New York when we can't meet the other innovators that we want to meet? Why are we in this place where we may ride an elevator up 50 floors and be exposed to COVID the whole time? Here in Stamford, they've been coming out of the city in droves. We've been seeing an explosion of young people and professionals and companies moving out of the city here to Stamford. And really, the future is, and not to proselytize, but the direction is we need to make our cities, particularly cities like Stamford, New Haven, and Hartford, extremely attractive to retain those people. They're here. They're understanding that the quality of life in Connecticut is just so much higher. They're understanding that the financials relative to Connecticut or even Boston are favorable for a startup when you're thinking about being lean, when you're thinking about every penny, when you're looking at your burn rate. And so how do we make it so that we have these cities now? Let's create and continue to create cool, interesting urban spaces that are going to make the cool, interesting, thoughtful people who are starting these companies want to remain here now that they are here. That's us. I'm not qualified to talk about New Haven or Hartford, so maybe.
No, and I'd love to hear JoHannah and Shana, your perspectives on your, if whoever wants to jump in.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of challenges, but there are so many things that are going well and that we're doing right. And I think if we can bring awareness to what those things are and break down the barriers to access some of the things that we are doing well, that's where we're going to succeed. So one example I'm thinking of specifically is our nonprofit. So District Arts and Education didn't start out as primarily a focus on fixing education. It's not about that. It's about workforce training and learning and double-sided mission. The founding party believes that talent is the most important thing as it relates to starting a company and attracting, recruiting, and retaining talent. And two, to break down barriers to access these jobs. And what we do when we partner with the Whole Burton School and other entities here is really focus on the fact that Connecticut has 7,500 open computing jobs. If you have used your phone during the pandemic, you can thank a software engineer. We know that these things are going to continue to be needed. And we also know that there is capable and ready talent within our state that has been underserved in K-12 by not being introduced to computer science, that has been underserved as adults, 18 through 60, particularly minorities and women, and are ultimately ill-equipped to respond to the state's need for tech talent. I mean, how many companies have come in through accelerators or incubators and stay? Like, we're not holding people in. Why? When we've got the best workforce in America here, why aren't we activating them? Why aren't we using the talent that we have and eliminating the barriers for them to access these meaningful jobs? Our graduates are starting salaries at $72,000. There's meaningful change there that is truly innovative.
Shana, anything to add?
Yes, I mean, I think that, really good points have been raised. And I know that Connecticut is now feeling a little bit of a surge because people have left New York or Boston. But realistically, it's probably going to be temporary for most, and they're going to end up going back unless, like Wes says, we find a way to keep them. And I think we're facing in the next 6 months a unique opportunity that unfortunately government has never been fast to react to these, sensitive 6-month opportunities. But if we don't do it, in 6 months, we'll be back to, we're not attractive. They're back in the city because there are things that are missing. And JoHannah was talking about talent. Talent is a huge issue. Some of the things we've done at Upward is when we do bring the startup, we try to help them hire. But, we're looking at, we're one state, we're small on the grand scale. Are we doing enough? There's states that are doing incredible programs. I've had a conversation now. Upward has invested in 28 startups to date, the Upward Labs. And I've been having conversations with these companies around the country and around the world saying, how do we get you to take jobs in Connecticut? And, if you handed them a perfect candidate for each one, they probably hire, but we don't have infrastructure to help do that. And we don't have, Upward has been doing a lot of work with internships in the universities, but even that needs a lot more work. You have countries that are, if you hire interns and you hire graduates, they're paying for part of it. There's so much better infrastructure around the world than we've ever had in our state on how to say, we're not going to let you go. We're going to white glove it for you. You're here. We see your potential of building 30, 40 jobs. We're going to help you make that happen. We're going to help you hire because and in Upward's case, these are companies that already have landed commercialization deals with one of the mega corporates in the Hartford area. And I want to see us, and we are trying, we're doing everything we can, but we need more help how to be able to do that better. And this really is a statewide effort. I think that one of the things we saw in COVID that was really kind of fantastic is how much people work together. And you saw, regional work, right? You saw the governors coming together because they realized that if we fix COVID in Connecticut, but New York doesn't, we're in trouble. How do we do the same thing around economic development? Economic development, like COVID, is bigger than all of us. It's bigger than one state. And we see the startups we work with around the world don't look at Connecticut. They say, we need something in the Northeast. We want to do research in the Northeast. We want to set up the sales, marketing. And I think if the Northeast would work together better, not only the cities in the state, but we'd have more of a regional approach to how we bring the startups that need to be in Connecticut to be in Connecticut while letting the ones that need to go to Boston go to Boston. It would be more sustainable. It would be more of a joint effort. While currently states are just cannibalizing each other's works. We're all fighting over the same ones. One is offering giving a better offer, maybe more money to a startup. They're ending up going there. So I think COVID taught us a lot on how potentially we could look at things we've done yesterday and do it better and do it more collaboratively.
On the talent front, the things are starting to move on that front. So in the past 12 months, I actually, here at Stamford Next, we funded and piloted for the governor what's being referred to as the Governor's Innovation Fellowship here. We went around to all of the major companies, startup and larger scale here in Stamford. We said, create jobs, and we're going to go to the universities here in Connecticut. We're going to convince those students that the top students from those schools should stay and join and work in those jobs. And over the course of 6 months, we went out, we had 30 jobs that were created. COVID took a couple of them away. We recruited a few hundred students from the top percent of all of their classes. We then matched them up with these jobs here in Connecticut. We paid them a stipend, a $5,000 grant to help them with their moving or with their first month's rent and those sorts of expenses. And they're in those jobs. And over the course of this 12 months that we're in now, they're going through programming. They're doing professional development. They're learning how to communicate better in the workplace. They're learning advanced computing skills. And this is, to your point, the white glove type service that we need to do. 42% of Connecticut's graduates from our universities, and the better universities, that number's higher, leave the state. And our greatest export is intelligent people while we have those 7,500 computing jobs open. So how do we, to your idea of that white glove approach, that's real. And other states around us, Rhode Island has the Wavemaker Fellowship. I know that Indiana has an incredible fellowship, the Orr Fellowship, which actually the Governor's Innovation Fellowship is based on. But after this successful pilot this year, CTNext, the state's small business support network, has decided to take the Governor's Innovation Fellowship and expand it statewide. So you're going to see it popping up in cities near you. And the whole idea is, we're going to create that two-sided marketplace so that companies and talent can find each other and they feel like they're in an impactful role here in the country.
Yeah, and it's a great first step, and we've been doing that as well, but it's much more than only talent, it's investors. And that's, Upward has been doing it to the startups we invest in. We match them. This week alone, our 10 companies have each met 25 funds from around the globe, from around the country, because there aren't enough funds in Connecticut. So we're trying to get the money so if they have money, they stay. But everything we're doing is still too small. We're a state that needs, everything has to come together, and wider and bigger solutions have to be implemented. But this is definitely great starts, right? Testing the waters on what works and seeing how to replicate that.
I want to just cut in for a moment to remind the audience too, we will transition to audience questions in just a few minutes. So if you have any burning questions, please put them into the chat box, and we will make sure that we get to those before we sign off today. I would love to just dig in a little bit more, because I think we've heard some really important themes. Obviously, access to talent, the workforce development piece of our pledge is coming through loud and clear. The need for community, the need for funding. I would love to kind of take an equity lens, because I think we've heard that come through. JoHannah, certainly in talking about the Halberton School and District's nonprofit work. I think each of you have ways that you're thinking about equity and inclusion as part of the important factor here. And I'd love to hear more about, how you're approaching this economic recovery with an inclusive lens.
I think we've started on a good path. There are so many more things that we can be doing. Just as background context, like the Halberton School is a 2-year program. There's no prerequisite to attending. You could be 17 or 70. You don't have to have any background in computer or software engineering. You pass the test, you get in. It is tuition free until graduation, and then you pay back your tuition over a period of 36 months after graduation, which breaks down the barrier of initially needing money for tuition for the school. The barrier that's still in place is you still have to live and support yourself while you're in school, which is really difficult to do when you're in a program as intensive as that. One way that a foundation, the Kaiser Family Foundation in Tulsa, with their Holberton School Program partnership, they launched life stipends. So $1,500 a month to students who are earning less than $60,000 a year. Like, what a great way to partner with other like-minded organizations that breaks down another barrier and gives people better access to entry. I think we have access to data about what works. If we can get people behind it, we can 10x the results that we've gotten in just the first 2 years. I think one of our problems is that, we call in consultants and we want them to give us answers about, what we should do, and what they tell us is what has happened, and it's their job to study differences, not similarities. To Shana's point, it's like there's a lot here that is similar between our states here in the Northeast, and if we don't pit ourselves against each other, but instead work to develop a greater supply for the demand that we all have, I think that's where we start to 10x innovation. But we can't really expect to get that when we're not teaching it, when we're not acting in that way, if that makes sense.
Wes or Shana, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and maybe in brief so that we can get to some audience questions as well.
Absolutely. Just very briefly, your point on being equitable and inclusive is important, because I think that not only is our recovery potentially going to be lopsided if we aren't asking these questions, but we've been lopsided in the state for a little while. Networks in the state are tight and insular. And if you're in a network, you're in it. If you're not, you're not. And so one of the goals that we put forward this fall, and we actually issued an RFP specifically for this, is we're looking to fund and find projects that specifically create resources in community for those underserved or those less targeted demographic groups, where they can have the same ideas as any other demographic group. And this is why I mentioned Chef Renee earlier. The Immigrant Entrepreneurship Incubator that we're funding through the Stamford Building 1 Community Center, that's just hopefully the first drop in a larger bucket, right? It's funding 8 to 10 companies to go through that incubator process. I'd like to see that be 50. I'd like to engage the donor community. I'd like to engage the business community to find a way that we can scale that up so that we're pumping through companies through this incubator, because those ideas are there. And if you give people the opportunity to start their own business, and you give them the resources and the confidence and this safety net almost, right, with that they'll take that and they'll run with it. And so that's one thing that I'm particularly excited about. And I think that it's something that we can do, because there's so much room for improvement that we need to take that on.
Thanks.
And I'll just jump in, Sarah, with something brief, because such good points were raised. What we learned at Upward is, and it was a humbling realization, is that from the first day we were open to everyone and welcomed everyone, and our programs were for everyone. And we're downtown, the North End is right next door. And still, it was, you didn't get enough of diversity that you wanted. And really what we're actually working now, I can't really give the details because it's pre-announcement, but our partner Shelbourne has purchased the old Fuller Brush building in the North End. And together we're actually building programs for the North End community. And it's around job training, and it's around entrepreneurship in that community. So it's for the community, in the community, and how to create opportunities, not only for them there, but because the most important thing for us is that we're not two separate communities, we're one. And there's this invisible bridge that no one, can cross, and it has to be crossed. And Sarah, you guys are in Parkville, so you understand that. We're a tiny city when you take all the neighborhoods. And for some reason, it feels like 3 cities, and it can't anymore. And sometimes it's not only goodwill, you have to go in and force that and create hubs that can then work together and and support each other. So it's something very important, and hopefully in the next few months we'll be able to share more details.
Great examples. Thank you all so much. So I think we do have a couple questions. So Molly is going to jump in to read the first audience question. Molly?
Well, I suppose this is a unique opportunity to mention that Innovation Places is a 5-year authorized program by the legislature. I know that it's something that we're looking to get reauthorized this year, and that would be a way to really push on and keep doing the work that we're doing, supporting small businesses. So it was the legislation that created Innovation Places was very much a bipartisan response to the loss of GE. And we're seeing that kind of grassroots growth coming. And I think that the same bipartisan mentality that created resources like Innovation Places is still there. They still recognize that it's something that we need to be doing as a state. And I'm optimistic that the legislature is here with us and understands us.
And I just want to jump in. I mean, we've had a lot of the legislatures come visit Upward and everything. And I'm sorry, it's still not enough, because yes, they recognize innovation is important. How could you not? But I think I don't know if they're recognizing that it's critical for the state. And I don't think that they're realizing that more has to be done. We've actually ran studies comparing what Connecticut is doing to other states, and other states have been much more innovative in ideas and how to use funds for innovations and to fund more programs. We need, Innovation Places was a good program, but it needs much more funding. And other programs need much more funding. We need to realize that workforce development, the future of it comes under innovation. Apprenticeship programs, a lot of it is sitting under innovation and maybe sitting under other things now. And I welcome the legislatures to come speak with us, because, they may be doing things for innovation, but I think that with us, they can do much more.
I think we've definitely seen the support of our state and local governments. Like Wes, District Arts and Education is a recipient of the Innovation Places grant with CTNext, as an Innovation Collaborative and Economic Development Corporation. So I believe that their heart is in the right place, right? They know that they need to continue supporting these programs. We just need to continue supporting them, but understand what works. Support what works, continue doing that. Like, sometimes we overcomplicate things and try to look for other things that, this is fancy, we can do this. Stick with what works. We know what works. The future for us is looking for partners and philanthropists who understand what we could be doing and how we can partner to create even more of the success that we've seen to date. So sometimes it's just about, we know what works, invest there, keep doing it.
Thank you so much for sharing, guys. We'll definitely work in partnership with the state to kind of keep up these initiatives and focus on what the work that you guys are doing here. If we could just briefly shift the focus, you guys have all emphasized this morning how your organizations rely on startups. Can you just give us some, support and talk about how graduating and upcoming workforce should believe in startups and why they could work here instead of maybe major corporations?
Yeah, startups are the ultimate opportunity to show what you can do. It's you as a person, as a graduate, as a new professional, can have your hands in you can have your fingers in every pie. You can see every part of a business, and you can learn what it means to run or own or be a leader in a business from the first day that you graduate college. And those are impactful and self-development type roles that you can't find in a larger environment where there's less risk. There's certainly a more defined path, But if you're willing and able to go with the undefined path, the personal rewards and the personal growth that you can get working at a startup as a graduate is unparalleled. And on top of that, if you work hard enough, truly, the sky is the limit. You know, every company that exists now on the Fortune 500 was a startup at one time. And so you work hard enough, you put it in, and you believe in yourself in the path, and the less trodden path, then the rewards are certainly there.
And we're also seeing that a lot of corporates are hiring startup employees because they have broader vision. So many students think it looks better if I go work for a corporate for a few years. It looks better on my resume. Not necessarily anymore. And I just want to mention, we have a partnership with University of Hartford where we are matching interns with our startups, and incredible stories are coming out of these startups that are just, you know, within a few months are leading efforts in Connecticut for maybe a startup out of Hong Kong. And they're doing installations and they're meeting with really important people. And so you could have been at a corporate for 20 years before doing something like that. So it's such an incredible opportunity. And I actually think we shouldn't be speaking about it. The interns that are working at these startups should be featured and share their experience compared to others. Because a lot of the universities, when they're doing intern days and matching days, they don't even invite startups. They only invite the Travelers, Aetna, and Cigna of this world. And it's a big mistake. And when we dug deeper, they told us because we think a startup is someone out of a garage and they don't have respect for the word, when actually a startup can be up to 100, 300 employees. So it's sometimes just semantics of people understanding what a startup is. And so I think there's education that needs to be done to the universities, and having and highlighting these students that have taken these positions and could not be happier.
Yeah, I would just add that there are two sides to that coin. As someone who is operating a startup, it's a great opportunity to be able to do things that you would not be able to do in, you know, a corporate space. There's a lot more responsibility and a lot more, well, no one's doing that, so I'm going to do it, which creates a lot of opportunities for learning and growth. But I'm also very grateful that as I've been able to be here at District with 95 other startups, that there is a real sense of you can't do it all. Like, make sure that you're taking care of yourself in that process. And I think that's why communities like this are so important, whether in person or virtual, to sort of right size, you know, work, especially as it, you know, has grown in the pandemic when you're on your computer all the time. And so there really is no start or end time. So we just add that little piece there for those who are being hired.
Wonderful. Well, I so appreciate all of this, and I wish we could go on for hours. I know there's a lot to keep diving into, but unfortunately we do have to wrap up. I want to just thank again our esteemed panelists, Shana, JoHannah, and Wesley. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm happy to be, I think, ending on a very optimistic note with this sentiment. I think we've got a lot of work to do, but certainly a lot of great assets in our state and the power to pull it off. So I just really appreciate all of the perspectives that you've shared. And thanks again to CBIA for having us all this morning.